What is up YouTube? My name is, as always, Mr. Esnorb, and I welcome you all back to this video on my channel. Today it's a little bit different than usual because today we don't specifically have a guide or some specific gameplay or something, and rather I just wanted to yap a little bit about the RuneScape 3 leagues. I basically make this video as a last video that I create to this mode and just talking about it, how I felt about playing leagues and what were my ups and downs. So you can easily put this video in the background while playing RuneScape at yourself, for example, and I would really like to hear your thoughts of the modus and my critic points and stuff in the comments. And as always, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoy it, and now let's head right into it. So I played RuneScape 3 leagues now for the last month, and I played really active. I even had some days off in the first week of the mode, so I could really dive into it and experience the mode at its fullest. And I really need to say that I had a lot of fun, in this year's leagues. I really loved to play the game, and I really love playing the early game of RuneScape 3. I always feel really nostalgic and stuff, and to be able to get so fast into the late game and then also, experience endgame content a little bit different, since I chose a different combat style that I have never done before, and I had these relic powers and stuff. It was really cool, and it was a really fun experience, and I definitely enjoyed my time in the RuneScape 3 leagues. But still, there were some points that took a little bit of that fun out of the game for me, and I also want to talk about these topics. So first of all, what I really found frustrating, to be honest, is that you never really had relic choices to begin with. Yeah, sure, at every level you could choose 3 different relics, but then on the other hand, almost always one of those 3 relics was so much better than the other ones. For example, if we look at the first 3 relics, even before the mode came out, you had a lot of streamers and creators talking about the relic choices, and all of them basically told you pick the excavator. And the same goes, by the way, for almost every tier. On the second tier, almost all people took Farming Frenzy. On the third tier, to be honest, there you had your choice. These were just the teleports to get around Gielinor. On tier 4, you either took the Clue Connoisseur to get a lot of league points done, or Production Master, depending on what you want to do. There you had a little bit of choice, which was nice, but still most people took the Clue Connoisseur just because clues gave you so incredible much league points, and they were just free league points after this relic, you know. In the combat tier, you actually had a choice. You could choose whatever you wanted, but still, the magic and the range relic were just insanely bad. And then the necromancy was okay-ish, and the melee relic was just absolutely insane. So almost everyone picked the melee relic. And I especially found this is really sad because on my Bronzeman account, in the near future, we have to choose the next combat style to play with because we're getting to an end with necromancy. And therefore, I thought that I could maybe choose ranged or mage in this year's leagues and learn a little bit about the combat style. But the relic choices were just so poorly designed that I almost had to go with melee because it was so much better. And it was really fun to do melee, but still I think it would have been way funnier if you actually had a choice there. If you could choose, for example, magic and also had this lifesteal, or you also had these plus 500 damage at the weapons and stuff. So melee basically got so many buffs, and the other combat styles got some little things that were a bit better than in the main game, that it was almost a no-brainer to choose melee or necromancy if you wanted so. Which I found was definitely a little bit sad, and let's be honest, if you log into leagues, you almost see every person with melee relic, you know. Then on tier 6, you actually did not really have a choice. Banker's Note is a cool thing in old school, but it's not that useful in RS3, and I think a lot of people have talked about it. And let's be honest, perfection. Yeah, I mean, invention is so important, and don't having that perk and having to get your materials as an Iron Man and stuff is just so annoying. So if you did not take perfection, I think you really missed out in a lot of content and stuff. So which was kind of sad. And then at tier 7, I think this was the first time you actually really had a choice, because on tier 7 you definitely had the route of picking Everlasting Faith if you wanted to go a little bit defensive. You could choose Specialist, which was really strong and OP especially if you did not have an essence of finality by now, or you could just go with the Ascension route and get this Elder God book, which was just so insane and stuff. So at tier 7, you really had a choice. You really could choose all 3 of them without having to, regret the decision afterwards. But I think in all the other tiers that you could unlock, there was basically not really a choice to choose from at this point. And I also noticed this in my comments of the videos, because I made a lot of guides to the mode and I showed you guys a lot of stuff that I did while playing it, and I always refer to my relic choices, and I had a lot of people that wrote comments like, yo, I did not pick Farming Frenzy, what could I do now? Or hey, I did not pick the Excavator, do you have any tips? And then some other people commented and were like, yo bro, start over again, it makes no sense, you have to choose the right relics. And I think this is really sad, because in my opinion, if you have a mode like Catalyst Leagues, it should be just a fun mode to play, you know, and everyone should be able to go in and just choose whatever they want, and the buffs should always feel like buffs and feel really cool and just have their purpose. So they should all be kind of on the same level, because otherwise you could just make basically 1 relic per tier and then we can just unlock it, which would also be fun, but yet still it was a little bit sad. Then I also noticed that the grind in this year's leagues was just insane. So as I mentioned, I had the first week of the RuneScape 3 leagues. I only had to work like 2 days, so not 5 days as usual. So I had a lot of time to play the game, and therefore I had a lot of time to grind, and I was able to unlock my higher tier relics pretty fast. But I also realized that a lot of people in the community that, for example, can only play at the weekend, they kind of struggled. And I can understand this, because it took a lot of time to unlock the relics, to unlock your stats and stuff, to really being able to enjoy the bright side of the game mode. You know, let's be honest, the most fun about leagues was when you finally got into that mid to late game and could experience, for example, boss fights or content that you knew from the main game in a broken and overpowered way. But since it was such a long grind to get there, it kind of felt like you had to grind just a lot of content that maybe wasn't that funny at all, just to be able to enjoy that end to late game later, you know? And the really bad thing about this is, I mean, I'm a RuneScape player. I'm always open for a good grind, you know? But yet still grinding that hard in a mode that basically deletes itself 1.5 months later is just something that felt bad, you know? Because in my opinion, a mode like Leagues, where you know that your stats will be deleted, that your account will be gone, you should just be able to open up, play it casually on the side, and yet still make a lot of progress. And for me personally, that did not feel like this. I really felt like that I have to put hours in just to progress my account and therefore get ahead in the mode and stuff. Which again, just feels bad if you know that all your progress, all your grind will be useless in like 1.5 months, you know? And this also was something that I experienced with, for example, the drop rates. I mean, I made a few posts on this channel about it, but I have never told this in a video, because I basically was kinda lucky when I went for my first grind. So I got a Dragon Rider Lance pretty early on at Vindicta. I also got a Noxious Scythe without having to do too much Araxor. I mean, I spawned her in melee form, so I think I was kinda average lucky there. But then at Suck, for example, with the exec kill, I only needed 6 hard mode kills. And I think the drop rate would have been 12 hard mode kills to get the whole sword. So I was kind of lucky there. But then on the other hand, at the Katra, I went really dry. And I mean really, really dry. The drop rate of receiving Essence Shard of Genesis is about 1 in 12. And I made over 60 kills, I think it was 63 hard mode kills in the end, without getting any shard. I got 11 of the weapons and still no shard. And this was basically something that kinda killed the spark for me in this mode. Because the big problem I had with this, that Nekatra still was a big boss, and for one run in the Sanctum of Rebirth, it took me about 10 to 15 minutes to kill all the bosses and then Nekatra at the end, you know? And killing her 63 times without getting that one drop just felt so insanely bad. Because other than, for example, in the main game, when you play an Iron Man even, I cannot use the other drops. And you did not even had really good tasks about the high level bosses. I mean, for most, it was just like, kill him one time, gives X amount of league points, and then kill him 100 times also. There were almost no tasks like equipping the magic weapons at Nakatra, or doing her with melee and mage and necromancer, whatever, you know? There were just so little tasks about the high level bosses that's getting dry, yeah, felt bad. So for me, it was basically either I receive that shard and I win, or I don't get it and everything else is useless. In the main game normally, I would just say, oh, I got 11 weapons and stuff, so this is just a lot of money, I could sell it, for example. Or even on the Iron Man, I could argue that you can disassemble the things for components and stuff, so you have a little bit of usage for these things again. And even though, if you don't get the shard in a lot of kills and stuff, you could still, yeah, be able to leave that grind and get back to it like a few months later, just like I did on my bronze man with Raziel, where I just didn't get the armor, so I grinded out the second armor piece, and now I left the grind for a few months, and now I will pick it back up, you know? But in Leagues, you basically have no different choice than just do it or not do it. I can't just make a break of it for like a month and then get back into it, because in a month the mode is no longer here. And it just feels so bad, because now I have this chest, I have all these weapons and all these items that I basically can't use, and there is so much time that I spent on this thing without receiving anything, you know? And I made some posts about this in my on my YouTube channel, and a lot of you guys also had same experience and were like, hey, it is really feeling so bad if this happens in the Leagues game mode, and shared your experiences also. And then I basically learned that it is really exactly like this, you know? That when you go dry in the main game, it doesn't feel great. You know, getting dry at the boss is always shit. I know that. But getting dry in this temporary, for fun, fast gameplay mode just feels so incredible bad. And I really think that, yeah, we have 6 times the drop rates, but I think Jagex should have implemented something like a bad luck mitigation or something, or just even pumping up the number at this drop rate and stuff. So it is, yeah, this cannot happen, you know? Because it doesn't matter where you get dry. Even if it's Vindicta, I experienced a lot of people that had to kill Vindicta like 200 times to get that Dragon Rider lance. And this with a drop rate of like 1 to 80 or something. This is just really annoying, you know? Because, as I mentioned, you sometimes really cannot use the other drops, and then you're just like there farming that boss for nothing over and over again, and it just takes time and stuff. So I really think this was basically my worst experience that I had in the game mode, and I think even one of my worst experiences that I had overall in RuneScape. Just getting dry and feeling so fucking frustrated and useless, and having no other choice than just either surrender and don't go there again. Then on the other hand, I had the thought at like 30, 40 Nakatra kills, but then I thought, hey, you already killed her 30 and 40 times, so you have to go back there. And yet still, I did not receive any shard. So this was really unlucky, you know. On the other hand, what I really loved about the mode, and I really was happy to see this, because I want to end this video on a positive note, because it was a cool experience for me. I really had fun. I know it does not hear like this at the moment, but I really had fun. And I also loved to make all the content about the game mode, and seeing all these responses of you guys and seeing how you loved my videos and stuff. It was just such a pleasure, you know. And what I also definitely enjoyed was seeing all those old school creators that came into the game and just, yeah, really experienced RuneScape 3 for real. Because a lot of people, they just hate on the game because of Evolution of Combat that was like over 10 years ago and stuff, but did not ever try it out themselves. And I think the game mode really forced a lot of old school people to try out the game, to try out RuneScape 3 for real, to try out the combat system. And there was a lot of positive feedback from people like Foe and stuff, and this was just something I really enjoyed, and I was really happy to see that some old school creators and some old school players now finally could step down from their high horse and just play the game and enjoy it. Because RuneScape 3, I mean, I see the differences between the two games, and I can totally understand if you don't like RuneScape 3 and you prefer old school and stuff, but acting as like RuneScape 3 is like a game a toddler has coded and is really bad to play in something is just not fair about the game, you know? So yeah, I think the whole experience I had with RuneScape 3 Leagues was overall really positive. I had a lot of fun creating this new account, learning a new combat style, seeing new content, and also breaking the game a little bit with melee, for example, with the damage rates and the lifesteal and stuff. But yet still, I think there is a lot we can learn from these leagues and improve on. And I also hope that, for example, if we see another RuneScape 3 Leagues, that they will implement something like in the Raging Echoes Leagues, where you have newer, different boss fights and stuff that we have never experienced before in the game. So I'm really looking forward to a next league mode. I think for me, I am now, I think, at the Adamantium trophy, I think, or something. And I wanted to grind out the Rune trophy, but I think I will not get to the Dragon trophy because it takes too much time for me. And yeah, I really enjoyed the mode, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video here. If you have so, please leave a like, leave a comment with your critics and stuff. And now I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye.